Kevin Guthrie. Director Guthrie has been an invaluable part of this council and is managing the Disaster Response and Recovery Assessment Subcommittee as co-chair of that committee and has done a remarkable job with Noem, Kidd, and Director Guthrie. I want to thank you for all your hard work, taking your time away from the great state of Florida, as well as Chief Kidd. I will turn to you now for subcommittee report from Disaster Response and Recovery Assessment Subcommittee.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. It's an honor to be here in Oklahoma City today and to have learned valuable lessons over the last 3 days. I want to again express my gratitude for President Trump, Secretary Noem, Secretary Hegseth for this opportunity to help provide recommendations to enhance emergency management for all Americans. I want to thank Governor Stitt for his hosting us here in the state. For opening remarks, my opening remarks are reflective of the entire group from the Response and Recovery Subcommittee. President Trump is putting Americans first by creating a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to methodically align and strengthen how emergency management is integrated across all levels of government. We don't get an opportunity to hit the reset button often, and we've been given that opportunity through this committee. Through numerous listening sessions, including one that included tribal nations from Alaska to Florida and many from right here in the Midwest, we have gathered several important insights, and I'd like to highlight them. Most participants agree with the mantra that disasters are locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. This means responsibility should remain at the lowest level possible. You heard Governor Stitt talk about that just a few moments ago. Specifically, we asked participants in the sessions what federal support means to them, and overwhelmingly, we heard money. But we also heard a few answers and focus on personnel and equipment. We believe federal support can be boiled down to 3 core areas. That's standardization, coordination, and financial aid. And that came directly from the participants. A good example is the 28 federal urban search and rescue teams that have already been referenced here today. FEMA does a great job of typing and coordinating those teams, but at the end of the day, the personnel are local first responders who periodically deploy to other jurisdictions. FEMA provides annual funding support for those responders to train and exercise and equip them to respond. The investment there is twofold. It strengthens our systematic nationwide response, but it also enhances the capabilities of the communities that they serve every day. The key point, federal response assets, and I'm not talking about recovery, I'm talking about response assets, are typically not full-time federal employees, but they're local responders who are coordinated, trained, and funded by the federal government. The second part of the mantra is state managed. As Secretary Noem said at the first public meeting, funding will need to be shifted to something like block grants. In the listening sessions, many emphasized the need to receive financial assistance more quickly, but hesitate about block grants based on previous experiences such as Section 428 of the Stafford Act. The Response and Recovery Subcommittee has spent hours, maybe even days, exploring ways to accelerate local recovery through direct funding for public and individual assistance. Every disaster is different, and each state, local, tribe, and territory will manage it differently. As our tribal partners pointed out here in this room on Tuesday, there are cultural, building material, artistical, economical issues that are different as far as the East is from the West. And our system has to recognize that and be supportive in those specific responses and recoveries. Our goal is to identify federal minimum standards for recovery funding, while giving the states the flexibility to chart the best path forward for their communities and their citizens. The last part of that mantra is locally executed. Responsibility for the response and recovery of disaster clearly rests with the local government officials and residents. During the Los Angeles listening session, one of the local elected mayors emphasized that local officials should have more responsibility and decision-making authority. We agree, and there are ways we can help locals be better prepared for their incidents. For example, in Florida, communities are required to develop a comprehensive emergency management plan. These plans are essential for any disaster, but they mean absolutely nothing if the local government employees and even the local community are not trained to implement and utilize them effectively. Local emergency managers should properly train, should be properly trained and qualified for their positions to ensure plans translate into action. Alongside their elected officials, they are the leaders to get through a disaster. Local communities should be investing in themselves to be prepared for the disasters they know will come. This is accomplished not only through training and exercises, but also by addressing financial preparedness with the support of insurance and disaster relief funding. Communities should prepare residents and visitors by promptly providing clear information about potential hazards and threats, along with guidance on how to stay safe and prepared. While I'm the co-chair with NEM on the Response and Recovery Subcommittee, I would be remiss if I did not share one of the most talked about portions of our listening sessions, and that's mitigation. During every single listening session, at least one person has emphasized the importance of mitigation. I will say that mitigation is probably and perhaps the most misunderstood vertical of emergency management. Mitigation saves lives. It protects property. It reduces cost in future disasters. Oklahoma Director Annie MacVest and Arkansas Director AJ Gary discussed in this room this week how safe rooms and flood controls have saved hundreds, if not thousands of lives from deadly tornadoes and floods in the Midwest. Mitigation makes sense when you can rebuild and recover. However, it is very, very hard sell to strengthen something existing that is unaffected, as the return on investment may be unrealized. Mitigation has to be locally executed at that local level. By local, I mean not just local government, but all the way down to homeowners and business owners. There is a responsibility there that they must take. This looks like building code standards and best practices, such as not building in a floodway or at least building above the floodway, homeowners purchasing flood protection devices, hardening and maintaining their homes. Mitigation must go further than just asking for federal funds. State and locals must invest in their communities to stay resilient. In closing, I'm going to lead with this, and we've done this week. It's time to have an honest conversation with ourselves as emergency management directors. NIM posed a question this week, and he asked the states that were represented in the room this week in a closed listening session, how many of you depend on your sustainment funding of at least 50% at the state level? All those in this room said at least 50%, and it went much higher than that. No other public safety centric agency at the state or local level depends on 50% or more of their funding coming from the federal government. States and locals should be investing in themselves instead of shifting responsibility of sustainment onto the federal government. A scary thought is 6 U.S. Code 821, Section 3A and B defines a catastrophic event, and this country has never experienced it by definition. Never. We've had some really, really bad disasters, but we've conditioned ourselves that now a 10 out of 10 is actually probably more like a 6, 7, or 8 on that scale. We have not experienced the maximum of maximums, but we have to be ready for that day. Each state faces unique hazards. State-driven investment allows for the solutions that are tailored to the specific needs rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all federal program. When citizens see their state investing directly in preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation, it builds confidence in government. It fosters stronger community resilience. Furthermore, communities that are prepared and supported by state resources can bounce back much more quickly instead of waiting for federal programs to activate. Every community has different vulnerabilities. State-driven investments help address those local issues. By funding, training, outreach, local preparedness initiatives, and mitigation, states can foster a culture where citizens know their risk and how to act before the disaster strikes. I am proud to see the progress of this council, Governor, and I'm making thoughtful recommendations to the President. I want to personally thank the designated federal officer, Patrick Powers, and his staff. They truly are the backbone of a lot of this work that is going on, keeping us on track and dedicating countless hours to transcribing, researching, and collecting data that drives the council's efforts. I want to thank my partner, NEM Kidd, Mark Cooper, and Bob Fenton for their support on this. We could not do it without each other. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Secretary Noem, Secretary Hegseth, and President Trump for your commitment and leadership.